Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to episode 120 of the Live Your Fuck Yes Life podcast. I am Amanda Catherine Loy, your host, and this is Kevan Loy, my husband. And this is the third episode that we are doing in the Let's Talk Polyamory series. Normally, you are not a co-host of mine, but you've kind of become one the last couple of weeks. How do you feel?
I feel fine.
That's all you have to say for yourself?
No, surely not. No, so it's been a fun endeavor.
Yeah, it's been fun to talk about all this stuff and get your perspective as well as mine. Sometimes it can be lonely being the only person sharing on the podcast, especially because I'm echoing my thoughts, over and over again. So
it's nice to have some contradiction once in a while.
Yes, lots of contradiction here, as per always with you. And today's episode is all around all things really, I think, fear at the end of the day of replacement and abandonment, which has been, I think, next to jealousy, probably the most requested and asked about topic, which doesn't surprise me at all.
Can I ask a question? It's slightly a tangent, but I really want to know.
Yeah.
At any point in this series, do we do like a happy thing of like, what?
I was just thinking about that.
Like, what the fuck? Why are you doing this? There's all this terrible shit. Why are you messing with
I was
this?
just thinking about that. Yeah, actually, as before we started recording, I was like, damn, like, these are great questions and really, really beautiful things, but it's like, and we've talked about our personal journeys with it, which I would say is rooted mostly in joy and discovery and exploration and excitement and all that stuff.
Sure, yeah.
But I think it's interesting how we tend to come together as humans around subjects that we are stepping into for the first time, or really anything new and novel with a lot of fear. And so it makes sense that a lot of the questions and conversations that I'm having with all of you, specifically over TikTok, which is, why this series got started, is because of that fear,
Yeah.
And so I think it makes sense that we're having these conversations, but also, we get conversations around like, what does your scheduling look like? And some more practical stuff.
It just seems backwards to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like it feels like, what would be all of the reasons why
we shouldn't do this?
Well, no, why I should do it. And then like, here are the things that you might bump into along the way.
Well, maybe let us know if that's something you would like. I know I don't have my DMs open on TikTok, but reach out on Instagram and let me know, or in the Patreon page. And let me know, if you want us to do an episode on like reasons why polyamory has been positive for us. And that could be a fun episode, actually.
Mostly I just like to end my day when we record these with like something happy. So not that this isn't happy to talk about it, but it'd just be fun to
this is a heavy one and one that hits close to home, I think, for both of us.
Definitely. That's why I got gin.
And I have beer. So cheers.
Shit's gonna get real.
But yeah, fear of replacement and abandonment is a big one. And something that I think I honestly did not anticipate navigating that at all in the context of poly, or really just generally speaking in relationships, because it hadn't been something I had really dealt with in any capacity before stepping into poly, like that fear. Curious if that was something that you like pre-thought about.
I mean, I did in multiple ways, like I felt like I feel like I dealt with, abandonment and general leaving or whatever a lot in my life.
Yeah.
And so stepping into poly, like I was worried about it for multiple things, chiefly like just to put like cards on the table, like I was worried about stuff with you in that, like, you hadn't dated a whole hell of a lot before we got together.
I met you at 19 and had one significant relationship before that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and not that I mean this in a shitty way about you, but just like there are a lot of fucking people out there. And, you're
gonna like wake up one day and realize that you really didn't have it as good as you thought. And
totally. Yeah. That was a big worry. But then, also the man, the dog is running into things. The more he's been drinking the gin. The more you open your heart up to other people, the more opportunity for that to happen, generally speaking. So I think, I had all this like stuff that happened throughout my life as a kid and, young adult, and even in my early 20s, that just made me really skittish and sensitive
Yeah.
to things in that realm. I mean, affairs, people moving in and out of my life where I didn't have any, not that you can control people, but I didn't have any say in it. There was no remorse. There's no part of that was my decision, or not remorse, like rebuttal or any way to engage. And so there's a lot of things that made abandonment really, really tricky.
Yeah.
And I think was probably my chief concern
Yeah.
moving into poly. I mean, maybe closely followed by like STI stuff, but like there's a big gap between those first and second concerns, I think.
Yeah, I think for you too, like it's definitely been where your fears and your anxieties have shown up with that as the like chief concern or potential,
Yeah.
in the span of poly, which is, I think it's interesting that, did you feel that way before we opened up?
What, that I was worried about abandonment here?
Yeah.
No, not really.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, I think it's exactly as you described. Maybe it's not as good as you think it is. Once you take a couple other cars around the block.
Isn't it an interesting thing though that we hold security in that for whatever reason? I'm thinking a lot about security and attachment, just generally speaking, because as we're recording this is also the day that I recorded the conversation that will be airing later on with the author of Polysecure, and we talked about attachment theory. And
what's Polysecure?
It's a book about attachment theory and consensual non-monogamy. Oh,
I'm playing you. I know. I was
like, you know what this book is. Why are you
asking?
Oh my God.
Man,
so funny. You're so good. You're being a great host. But yeah,
Look at me like I'm fucking crazy.
I was like, what is happening? Did you like lose your mind overnight or something? No. Now I lost my train of thought. Why was I talking about Polysecure?
You've been thinking a lot about security.
Oh, and how we draw security on this notion that because we're in a monogamous relationship, that they're not going to look at other things or see a potential for something better. And I think it's one thing. I'm not saying this is what you're saying. I'm saying that I think this is what a lot of people in monogamous relationships feel. And I think that there's, a certain degree of like sense of comfort in that. But I mean, the amount of affairs that occur and, breakups and all sorts of stuff because somebody, might meet somebody else, that I think that's quite exponentially quite large in terms of percentage.
Yeah.
And, there is something to be said about actively pursuing that, and developing substantial relationships with other humans, because at the end of the day, you want to stay in a relationship that feels aligned for you and for your values and for what your needs are. And I think a lot of people go into polyamory for very not great reasons, especially if they're entering in a couple. A lot of the time they walk into it to try to quote save their marriage, and usually that's a big old recipe for disaster, right?
Don't do that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, poly is not a symptom or another reason to be abandoned or, left. That fear and that potentially happening, I think, is less about poly, generally speaking, and more about our own personal attachments, where our anxieties lie and the traumas we might have experienced in our lives. And also, how we see ourselves at the end of the day, and where we feel like our insecurities, I think, come up really, really big when something new is explored and you step into a completely new framework, which is certainly what happened for us. And I know for me, a lot of my fear of abandonment or a placement started happening because my insecurities were bubbling up. That was my personal experience. It was less about my history of trauma around being abandoned as a child or, having affairs or having someone cheat on me. Like that's never happened in my personal history. So, and yet I also have experienced, and I'm actually, I would say in the last year, have navigated more of that actually occurring than I ever imagined. I would.
Abandonment, you mean?
I mean, that's a strong word, but yeah, I mean, being left or replaced, certainly. Sure. And that's not just in my intimate relationships that I'm talking about either.
Yeah, I think I agree with you about 95% of the way on what you've said. I think the one place that I would push on with this is that while the fear of abandonment isn't strictly related to polyamory, you do inherently open yourself up in a much more intentional and direct way and more frequently to other people. Yeah. Ergo, you're
a probability kind of guy.
Yeah, the probability increases.
Sure.
So it was there the entire time, right? Like you're no more secure in a monogamous relationship than you are in a polyamorous one from, breaking agreements or cheating or whatever.
Yeah.
But the probability of something there, I think, increases exponentially.
Totally. Probability for the win. Or maybe not so much.
Yeah, maybe not the win, but the reality.
Yeah. I think, though, at the end of the day, that our fear in this space is deeply rooted in our own lack of security.
Yeah, I agreed with all that. Like specifically when you got to the thing of like it's really stuff within you. Like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you don't know a lot about attachment theory, get ready for this episode. Maybe we'll put it out sooner rather than later so people can, you were like, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I was like, why don't you put that one out first and then we can talk about that one.
And we will talk more about attachment theory.
Nope, you missed a chance. Not doing it.
Later.
Not doing it.
But as somebody who identifies as securely attached to, like, within myself, I think it's interesting that because of how I've personally had my relationships go, and because of the people I have happened to fall in love with, over this journey, like my fear of being replaced or left, I think is present now. Whereas before, like, that was not something I ever worried about in the context of our relationship or our dynamic. I felt
previously or now?
Yeah, like I felt secure. I mean, I've had moments, I think, where, because of my insecurity, but it's very brief, and I am able to, because of all the work I've done on myself, I'm able to like take a step back, look above myself and be like, are you actually scared of this? Or are you just like having a moment of insecurity? And it's always been the latter. And I honestly don't feel like I felt that in like a year and a half. Yeah. It's been a really long time since I've had that feeling here. But in the last year, I have developed relationships. And frankly, I'm not just talking, like I said, about intimate relationships, but also platonic relationships with people that have meant a lot to me, where I have been like tossed aside in quite massive ways. And that's been really hard for me. And so I think it's interesting stepping into opening myself up to the potential of a new partner. That fear is present right now for me in a way that it hasn't been before, which is really interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think, I've in the last year, in terms of my, intimate relationships, I've happened to wind up with people who identify either as monogamous or monogamish and are open to ethical non-monogamy or polyamory. And it's ended in really heartbreaking ways for me, but
I was just thinking that the issue is that they actually weren't open. They thought they were because they liked you.
Right. And this is a problem I've continued to experience is somebody meets me and becomes enraptured by me. Your hair is doing some really great things right now. But they become like very enraptured with me, and they remove all the things that are important to them in their life in an attempt to be with me. And that's not to say that they're not aware because they all have been aware of that and honest with me about the uncertainty element.
Mm-hmm.
But the connection has been so strong, and their affirmations have been so consistent and strong that I chose to pursue seeing it through. And in every instance, it's ended really painfully for me.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you ever think that those strong affirmations are
them convincing themselves?
they're less for you and
Totally.
more for themselves?
Totally. It's been a really interesting, I was telling this to Kevan earlier. We were cooking dinner, and a big through line of our relationship, and both book and movie wise, has been The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And there's
I thought you meant the book and movie of our relationship, and I was like,
we have a book and a movie. Welcome.
Nor a fucking movie. And I was like, this is some Truman Show shit you're dropping on me right now.
No, but there's a line in that has always really stood out to me. And honestly, like, there are a few things that I would get tattooed on my body, but this might be one. And it's that we accept the love we think we deserve. And I deeply have a lot of self-worth. I've worked really hard to cultivate that and to, just feel really good about myself and really worthy and really confident. And yet there has been a pattern in the last year of me attracting people to my life and accepting this love that is not what I want, not what I deserve at the end of the day. The caliber of the love and the connection is there, but the structural way that it exists and how it ends is not. To me, patterns are always a place to look further and deeper. And so I've been really thinking about, like, why am I attracting this? And what does this say about me and where I need to work? So I guess I would just posit that to you listening, like, what are the patterns in your relationship? Or have you been left a lot? Or has that been a fear for you? And, like, what have you navigated in your childhood? What might you be attracting? Because it's a pattern. Like, the way that we grow up is something that we attract a lot of. It's part of our natural state, but we can break that pattern if we're aware of it. Maybe it's like a subconscious self-sabotage of, am I really ready for a partnership of that length? And maybe I needed the extra time and space to, have these smaller, short-lived relationships in order to prep myself for that. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of questions in my head around that, but.
Yeah. I mean, I know all of those things are really difficult, but I've thought, with all the loss in my life of friends and romantic partners and, I don't know, ideas and dreams, that all the
so depressing.
No,
sounding.
but it's true. But let me finish this thought, that, like, all that comes in and out of your life for a reason. It comes in because maybe you need that dream to keep you moving.
Yeah.
And it goes out because in reality, you're bigger than what you dreamt of initially, And people are the same way. Like, sometimes you need to learn that little nugget from Jim Bob. And, maybe, I was going to kind of come up with more names, but when you start with Jim Bob, you don't have a lot of places
it's
to
the
go.
Only place to be.
Apparently you only date from Arkansas.
Oh my God.
Sorry, people from Arkansas. Anyway, but my point is that, like, there's always something there, even my roomie quote from the other day, the cure from the, was that last week? Jesus, that feels like a year ago. The cure for the pain is in the pain. Like, there's a nugget in there.
Yeah. Well, and I personally believe that relationships are our biggest teachers, and a lot of the times we don't know that we need to learn that lesson until we're in it, right? Like, I look back on the painful hardships that I've experienced in the last year, and there's been a lot of loss and a lot of feeling left. And also, those relationships have taught me so much about what I want in love and who I am, and aspects of myself that I really needed to uncover. And I'm really grateful for all of that, So yeah, I agree with you on lots of levels there. I'm curious because I feel like I just talked an arm and a leg about my personal experience with this fear, but what has yours looked like in the context of poly?
Of being abandoned?
Yeah, your
Oh,
eyeballs.
Jesus. How much time do we have?
Keep the Coles notes on. Keep the Coles notes.
That's Cliff Notes for you
That's
Americans.
Coles Notes. It was originated in Canada. Fun fact. No. Fun fact. I'm Canadian for all those of you who are unaware. And I've always said Coles Notes. You all know it as Cliff Notes if you're an American. But it originated in Canada. It was always called Coles Notes, and fucking Americans just decided to, change that up, change it to Cliff, and make it their own and claim it for their own, like they do so many other things. It's Coles Notes. Get it right. Now it's your turn to speak. I will drink my beer.
I feel like you're just going to come in and tell the Coles Notes of my story.
The floor is yours.
We'll see how long this lasts. No, I mean, I've been very worried about that. I think poly for me was really easier starting out when, we were, dating together. Cause I think that that's out and not in like a creepy unicorn hunter way, but I think that was more my ideal formation of things.
Yeah. It was more the family unit.
Yeah.
That I think you were wanting.
It took about 22 seconds.
Wow. Wow.
I fucking knew it.
Wow.
Fucking knew it.
Called out.
But no, that is the reason. Thank you, Cole. I'm just trying to get you to spit your beer.
Almost happened.
But no, so I think that felt more comfortable for me, and it really wasn't in reality, but it felt more comfortable.
Yeah.
And when we started dating individually, I think that queued up the fear that we were kind of speaking about before of like, oh fuck, you're gonna realize that this has been a wolf in sheep's clothing. This is all a fucking ruse, and you got to get the fuck out of here real quick. But if you look at that, and you got to stare at it for a minute because it's scary as shit. But if you look at it and kind of peel the layers away a little bit, that's really like an insecurity thing, a lack of self-love, like a lack of self-worth, and like all this stuff. Which may be true. Like I may be worthless. I may not be worthy of love.
I'm shaking my head.
Nobody can hear that or see it.
That's why I said it out loud.
This is what you would see in Cole's notes, is the little interjection where they would explain something in more detail and then continue on.
It's a little asterisk footnote at the bottom of a book.
Is it like a caution symbol? What do they do for yours?
For the book?
In Canada, yeah. I don't.
For Cole's notes?
Yeah, Cliff's notes.
Oh.
So
God damn it.
Anyway, but no, so those like you may have some character faults there that you really do need to work on.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like you weren't any more. There wasn't actually more probability that you were going to find that out elsewhere. And honestly, like when I look at it for myself, the dating I've done has not, and it's been all, I think, been very positive. Like I haven't necessarily had the, some of the same trials and tribulations that you have.
Yeah.
So even how awesome that's been for the most part, like there's still so many things that I'm like, oh fuck, like I got it really good at home, and that doesn't mean that the other situation is bad. It's just like there's a different appreciation of it.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a really beautiful thing. And if we're talking about things that have been positive, right? I think one of the things that I didn't expect, because I already felt so amazing about our relationship when we stepped into poly, and so grateful and all the things, I didn't expect to develop a deeper gratitude and appreciation for what our connection is. And you in my life, like, I feel like poly has only amplified my deep love for you. It's like I knew what it was to be deeply in love, but I feel like I now know what unconditional love looks like.
Mm.
And yeah, like I'm constantly reminded of how amazing our relationship is on the daily. Both by the hardships I've experienced and the ways that those have gone down, but also by the great stuff, and the different stuff. And yeah, I like that. I like that you added that in.
Yeah.
So have you experienced, because I haven't really experienced the fear of abandonment or stuff with you. I think maybe for like a little bit, I had that while I was feeling some insecurities, but for the most part, I personally have experienced that in the context of new and other relationships. Would you say the same, or has that been mostly here? That's what you've expressed so far.
Well, I think it's been by and large here, the overwhelming majority. But I will say, I have one other partner that's really serious, and I think I was a little tripped up when they like dove like headfirst into dating. Like everybody's like talking or like whatever, but there, sometimes you take like a hard swipe into Tinder or OK Cupid, and you're in the hole for a little while. And I was a little worried about that. And I think it came from the same place.
Yeah.
But the gravity of it felt different. And not because the relationship is like less valuable or whatever, but there's, I don't know, just speaking frankly, there's a big difference between the weight of that and, something now, or I don't know how long we were together then.
A year.
But yeah, a year and a half in the neighborhood. And something that's been, I don't know, 8 or 9 years when like we really started, dating independently. It's just, there's a different gravity to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And a different piece to like go, oh, okay, like this is something different. This is a different size pill to swallow.
That's also not adding in the fact that you and I are not just in a relationship together that is really, really important and valuable, but we also have a home together, a life, have dogs together. Like if something were to happen and we were to choose to, uncouple, that would disrupt our lives as we know it on the date in a very different way than
that's
other relationships.
We have 2 dogs now.
That's so sad. My God.
You're the one bringing up all this sad shit for all these episodes. Hours we've been talking about sad shit. And I make one sad joke.
It is sad. I don't like to think about that.
Take it, Toby.
Yeah, I knew you would. Anyways, yeah, it's just interesting. And I would wager that, this is something that you probably are experiencing in some small way or a big way, those of you listening. So I hope this has helped to just hear that you're not alone in that space. And I know for me, that was a really big thing when I first started out. Like I just looked on Reddit forever and ever just because I wanted to see other people struggling, and not like in a bad way, not like please struggle too, but in a way of like, please make it that I'm not alone in these fears and these feelings and all that stuff. So
I think the beauty of that is you're not, it's that like Reddit, I think is sometimes dubious.
Cesspool for that.
Yeah. Cesspool for information are kind of dubious sometimes in advice, depending on your topic.
Yeah.
But you can always search and see that some other, noob was dealing with the same thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not people new to it. Sometimes it's people that have been around for, those are the ones I really find interesting. I feel like I get a lot from the ones that have been around something for a long time.
Yeah.
And then they also have a problem like that,
Yeah, for sure.
Like we even have some people that we know that are, have been poly for decades and like struggle finding new partners sometimes. And that like really hits them in a way that like you would think after, 20, 30 years of like being in the game, so to speak, that you would be used to, a lack of connection for a period of time or new connection.
Yeah.
But it really, it
can be hard.
Hits them.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's just interesting to think that like, there are a lot of things that change, and there are even more that kind of like stay the same.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. Well, let's we're going to, in a second, get to some things that have worked for us in terms of supporting ourselves through the process of these feelings and fears.
I did not prepare for this.
But before we do, I just want to remind you that we are still opening and have opened enrollment for the School of Fears, Feels, and Fucks. It is my 12-week, 3-month program, my group program, where we deep dive into really, really peeling back the layers on the things that are holding us back from stepping into our fuck yes selves. So we're going to be navigating a lot of fears, a lot of people pleasing, and shitting all over ourselves. And yes, I said shoulding, not shitting. And then stepping into embodiment work and moving through the feels with intention so we can really, 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 really step into our fuck yes selves, whether that's, you know, things that are holding us back relationship wise, sexuality wise, sex wise, within our health, our body image, our self-talk and beyond, work, purpose, all of that stuff. So check out the show notes if you want to join. I would love to see you in there. There are different tiers for your choose your own adventure, what works best for you. Again, that's the School of Fears, Feels, and Fucks, and excited to see you in there. So yeah, let's deep dive. And really can just share like if whatever is coming up for you in terms of what has worked, because I feel like this is a feeling that's really hard to sit with. And what has supported you through that, if anything? I can go first if you want.
Through abandonment stuff?
Yeah.
Multi-trip a week therapy.
I was about to say, I have a feeling we're going to say similar answers in this.
Yeah.
Therapy has been huge for both of us.
Yeah. I mean, when I was really navigating some stuff, I even made arrangements with my therapist, like, hey, like, I'm like struggling with X, Y, and Z in this situation, and this shit is real hard. Can I just like pop you a couple emails throughout the week? And like, if you take 5 or 10 minutes between clients or like whatever, like it would mean a lot to me. And, you know, she was really cool and helpful with that.
She agreed to do that. Yeah, I know my therapist has also agreed to text me for similar reasons.
You got text?
Sometimes, yeah. We're on texting terms, but yeah, not every therapist relationship is available in that way. So check what your therapist boundaries are. And also not everyone can have a therapist and has the privilege of that. So we also acknowledge that that's not always something that can be arranged. But I think really working on having a safe place to be able to just express yourself and feel seen is huge. So even if that person isn't necessarily a therapist, but somebody that you feel really safe or have a secure connection with, secure attachment with, that's huge.
I think also some OG folks in the community that you're in, whether that's polyamory or queer community, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like I think having people there that have been around the block a few times to be able to just call on and like, they may not even give you advice, but I don't know. I think there's, it's really tricky talking about and I'm not trying to like alienate people, but like, it's really tricky talking about some of this stuff with people that don't practice it. Yeah. Like if I were to go to one of my friends and be like, man, I'm just having like a really hard time. My wife's got this new boyfriend and, there's fucking magnums all around the house. I don't know what to do with that. Like, I have no, like they're not going to get it,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually, I don't know if you all saw on my TikTok, but I have started opening up spots in my calendar to do polyamory and E&M support calls, peer support calls. So you can book a 30-minute or an hour-long call with me. I've already had a few and they've been really amazing. And all you have to do is go to the link in my bio. I'll post it in there, but also it's on the link, my Linktree link in both my Instagram and my TikTok, to be able to do just that, have a conversation in a safe space, a non-judgment space, a confidential space with somebody who, yes, like I am a life coach. That's like my work, but we won't necessarily be coached, a client relationship. It'll be peer-to-peer talking about this stuff. And honestly, almost every person I've talked to so far, it's been all around like jealousy and then like this fear that we're talking about right now in the context of their particular situation. So, yeah, if you're really looking for a space for that, I'm here for you.
I did not mean that as a plug either.
I just kind of worked out.
Yeah. But no, because I had, I had like a a poly backpacking buddy.
I was going to say you
were.
call him a poly Sherpa.
Yeah, I don't know that that's appropriate.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Probably
I
isn't.
was, yeah. I think that's probably inappropriate.
Well, at least we've
Offensive.
learned and are now adjusting the language.
He's my backpacking buddy. And maybe that sounds
That
like a
sounds-
euphemism.
It
Don't mean it that
sure
way.
does. Yeah.
He's a good
Get
friend.
that back door. Yeah.
Nope. I'm done with this podcast. I'm done fucking co-hosting. No, no, I was very fortunate to have someone, you know, who was relatively close to, you know, my age.
Yeah.
That, you know, was married, and he and his wife decided to get into polyamory well after they were married. So it's like it was a good like person to have as a sounding
Yeah,
board.
you had somebody that in your corner for sure when we first started.
Yeah.
I did not have that gift,
So
unfortunately.
I found that super helpful. I think also trying to, and it wasn't always easy or even frankly possible to talk about stuff with you, like, because it's heavy,
Yeah.
you know, and it's difficult to like say this shit that like really isn't a problem, is causing a problem for me, and I don't have any fucking clue how to deal with it.
I think what has really worked for us, and I would say we have both utilized this though, with respect to each other, is if you are having this fear and you are in a relationship that is established of some capacity, you know, what I really like to have are anchor points. I call these anchor points in my coaching stuff. You know, it's like, what are some things that you can ask for or even go to yourself, like affirmations for yourself, or a ritual, maybe even with your partner that will remind you like that you are safe in that space, that you are not going anywhere. Right. And so I think being able to voice some of those things to each other, we've both done this at different times, saying, hey, like, I'm really struggling right now with like fears of being replaced and all this stuff. And I know that that's not going to happen, but I would really love some extra affirmations. Here's some examples of things that you might say that would be really supportive to me. Or, you know, when you get back from a date and, you know, it's been a while since we've seen each other, like it would mean a lot to me if we could have some reconnection time. And like, let's just like take like, even if it's 5 minutes where we're just like holding each other and like I'm being held, because physical touch is my love language. Like that's what I would ask for, you know, just being really intentional with how can you be supportive and also ask for support in small ways that actually significantly help from your partner, you know, to just help ease you through that process. So those would be my big ones. I think those are some good feedbacks.
Yeah.
Pound it out.
Pounded.
Slayed. I love it.
Yes.
So yeah, and let us know your feedback on this, some stuff that's worked for you in this space, either in our Patreon page or on Instagram, wherever you want to reach out and all of that good stuff.
Wherever comments are sold.
Yeah. And this has been an awesome episode. Thank you for being here. For all of the stuff that we talked about in today's episode, you can check them out in the show notes at AmandaCatherineLawyer.com/podcast/120. Oh my gosh, 120.
Oh, I did 127 in the beginning with my hands.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Fix it in post.
It's not that. It's 120.
Fix it in post.
It's 120. I'm not going to fix it. That's funny. 120. So all the stuff around the fears, feels, and fucks is there, as well as the peer support calls and beyond. Yeah. And I think that's it. Everything. And until next week, we'll see you on the flip side. Bye-bye.